In this video, I'm going to show you guys some of the ways you can check for if you have SIBO without using any expensive testing. So in case you guys aren't already aware, SIBO stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and it's when bacteria makes its way into the small intestine in abnormal numbers. It's a place really where a lot of bacteria shouldn't be, and then what ends up happening is bacteria start fermenting foods further up in the digestive system, causing an array of symptoms. So let's start off with the test that's commonly used out there to diagnose SIBO, and it's something called the SIBO breath test. Now this test will set you back probably between about 150 to 200 pounds. And what happens is you ingest a sugar, usually it's lactulose, and then every 20 minutes for the period of about 3 hours, you blow into this device, you breathe into this device, and it measures the level of hydrogen and methane gases that are produced at regular intervals throughout after you've ingested that lactulose. So the way this test typically distinguishes those people who have SIBO from those people who don't is the level of hydrogen and methane gas that's produced along the course of these 20-minute intervals when you blow into this device. And so it's pretty obvious that those people that come back with a higher level of either hydrogen or methane levels are more likely to be having a bacterial overgrowth present in their small intestine, because the bacteria is fermenting the sugar and it's producing these gaseous byproducts, and that's what's being measured with the device. So now, just before I continue with this video, guys, if you're somebody who desperately wants to be 100% sure you have SIBO before embarking on the pathway of looking for a specific treatment, maybe have some of the testing done, but I'm going to try to give you some of the signs from this point moving forward that you really want to be on the lookout for to try to almost self-diagnose yourself without the need for testing. So the first thing you desperately need to know about SIBO when it comes to trying to identify whether or not you're somebody who suffers with this is that almost all the bacteria in our digestive system is going to be housed in our large intestine / colon, and that's where it ferments aspects from our food. It might be sugar, it might be starch, it might even be some aspects of protein. That is where fermentation really occurs, in the large intestine. So if you're somebody who experiences a lot of food intolerances, it might be to things like dairy or wheat, or just any aspects of sugar, starch, or like I said before, even sulfur-rich protein foods that contain sulfur amino acids. If you're reacting badly with these foods and it's resulting in lots of gas and bloating and just abdominal distension, you can be quite sure you're somebody who has SIBO, because what's happening is the food is reacting with bacteria in part of the digestive system that it's not supposed to be. So what you might notice is following a meal, or it might even be away from a meal, is that you start to get a lot of reflux-like symptoms. You might get belching, burping, and then just slightly further down, it might feel like the food is sat there in your stomach for a long period of time. And then as it moves through the intestines into the small intestine, what's going to happen is you're going to get the fermentation reaction. So there'll be lots of bloating, there'll be lots of gas, constipation, probably then followed by diarrhea. If you're somebody who experiences these symptoms on a daily basis, this is what's important. If it's on a regular daily basis and it's been going on for months, if not years, you can be quite sure you've got more bacteria in there that shouldn't be there. And then what's going to happen is that is reacting with every single meal you're actually putting through your digestive system. So the second way I would look towards identifying SIBO without testing would be to look further than just the digestive system alone and understand that bacterial overgrowth can occur as a byproduct to a problem that might be occurring higher up in the body. So what I'm getting at, guys, is if you're somebody out there whose body is stuck in something called a sympathetic stressed nervous state, then what's going to happen is the electrical impulses that are sent to your digestive system will be hindered. So digestive function will work and then it won't work. So it'll kind of be temporarily working. And as a result, what's going to happen is stomach acid production isn't going to be as strong. Things like the release of bile and digestive enzymes aren't going to be as regular. And then another thing is bowel peristalsis, which is that contraction and relaxation of the smooth muscle tissue of the small intestine, is going to be hindered. So if all these processes are shut off for periods of time, it gives bacteria a fantastic opportunity to flourish towards the beginning of the digestive system. And then typically what tends to happen over time with a sufferer who experiences ongoing levels of chronic stress internally is their body might start to go into a state known as autonomic dysfunction. This is where the body can no longer self-regulate. So things like blood pressure is all over the place. It might be inability to stand upright for a long period of time. You might have sensitivity to lights, sounds. You might have poor temperature regulation. And what will happen with these people is the digestive system will be working, and then it will temporarily stop working, and then it'll be working again, and then it will stop working again. So these people are definitely at a much higher risk for developing SIBO. And actually, it's not a massive percentage of sufferers that fall into this category, but it's just something you really need to be aware of. And so on to the third way you can try to identify whether or not you're somebody who is experiencing small intestinal bacterial overgrowth without going in search for expensive testing. And that is to be a detective of your past. Try to think back to moments in your life where you may have experienced immense emotional trauma, or you might have had a physical blow following a certain activity. You might have fallen, or you might have been hit, where part of your body structurally has been knocked out of place. All of these traumas build up over time, and it leads your body into this stressed, sympathetic dominant state where, like I said before, nerve flow and blood flow are going to be jeopardized to the digestive system. And then when that happens, it's just a recipe for disaster, and it allows that bacteria to flourish at the start of the digestive system. So this could be all sorts of stress, guys, that falls under the category of either emotional, physical, or chemical trauma. And even things like antibiotics, food poisoning, but certain falls, if you've been hit by someone growing up, or you've just experienced some event where there's immense trauma and you might have even forgotten about it. Try to be a detective of your past. Think back to those events and think how that might have in turn led to your body ending up in that stress state where digestive function just isn't working properly. And then sometimes what a lot of people aren't really aware of is the fact that a lot of beneficial species of bacteria can keep other bacteria in check and in better numbers. So if you're somebody who has had a course of antibiotics in the past for food poisoning or for another cause, what might end up happening is when you wash out all that beneficial bacteria, it creates the breeding grounds. It creates a perfect environment and opportunity for certain gram-negative species of bacteria to flourish and then create symptoms as a result. So when we're looking at some of the trademark symptoms for SIBO, really some of the big things we're looking for are things like sluggish bowel motility, constipation, maybe cramping followed by a bit of diarrhea, definitely multiple food intolerances, things like reflux, bloating, belching, lots of digestive symptoms. But then also we want to look a bit deeper than just the digestive systems alone. If you're somebody who feels like you get anxious a lot of the time and you're not sure why, you feel very apathetic, which means that you kind of feel quite emotionless. All of these symptoms are signs that you are somebody who currently has to put up with small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And like I said, it may be a result of another cause, it may just be a byproduct, but nonetheless, those bacteria existing in your small intestine can create a plethora of symptoms. And then finally, what are some of the predisposing factors that somebody out there could suffer with that makes them more likely to be somebody who is a good candidate for developing SIBO? Well, obviously, emotional trauma, excessive physical trauma, if you've fallen or you've hit your head on something or you've hit your spine or you've just knocked some sort of vertebra out of place. Spinal instability, again, is a huge one because it's that connection between the brain and the gut via the nervous system. And if that pathway down there is jeopardized, then you're going to have jeopardized digestive function, you're going to have sluggish bowel motility, you're going to have jeopardized blood and nerve flow to the gut, you're going to have jeopardized stomach acid levels and things like pancreatic enzyme insufficiency and also lack of bile production. So all these things in turn are going to create the perfect environment and opportunity for bacteria to flourish in that part of the small intestine. And then when we think more about the IBD route, we think about things maybe like food poisoning, antibiotics, but another huge one is surgery as well. And I see a lot of people developing issues specifically following stoma surgery where they've had their intestines handled. They may have been given antibiotics around the time. They might have been in a very sterile environment which encourages the growth of gram-negative bacteria. And then so they might have picked up some sort of infection in hospital, but just the massive trauma on their body has led to a perfect opportunity again for bacteria to flourish in parts of the body where they typically wouldn't. So just before I end this video, I want to stress the importance again, if you're somebody who wants to be 100% certain you have too much bacteria in your small intestine before embarking down the route of a certain treatment, then by all means go and search for certain testing out there. I'm just telling you guys, it might cost between about £150 to £200, and you can look for certain signs and symptoms and predisposing factors, things you were exposed to in the past, that make you a better candidate for somebody who's more likely to be suffering with small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And a lot of the signs and symptoms I've put on this slide in front of you now are just absolutely trademark signs of this. So question of the day today, guys, involves you rewinding the video back about 10 seconds. And I really want to know how many of the 14 symptoms I listed in that table do you experience on a regular basis? Let me know down below in the comment section. I'm really interested to know. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't done already, guys. I'm coming out with a brand new video every single Monday and Thursday, 5 PM UK time, just on the topic of Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis and other digestive related issues. Finally, you may want to check out YouTube's recommended video for you. It will be the video above me, and then to my right hand side is my suggested video for you based on today's video. As always, thank you so much for watching, guys. I truly appreciate your time. Take care, and I'll see you again very shortly.